Hey friendo, Steve here. Welcome back to Ask WrestleJuice. You guys left a bunch of great questions. We're on the road to WrestleMania. Seemingly it starts earlier and earlier every single year. So the first question is about WrestleMania, and it comes to us from Lucasfilm 9221. Says, if Roman Reigns does fight CM Punk at WrestleMania, who goes over? Who wins that match? Now, I have a feeling that CM Punk versus Roman Reigns is going to be the match at WrestleMania, especially if The Rock elects not to have a match at WrestleMania. I do feel like on the Raw Netflix debut, they semi-tease the idea of maybe Rock taking off his sunglasses, looking Roman Reigns in the eyes, and maybe he's thinking to himself, this guy does not deserve to be the tribal chief. It should be Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. And that could pave the way to a Rock-Roman match at WrestleMania. But let's say The Rock doesn't do that, and Roman Reigns and CM Punk is the match. Of course, CM Punk's story since getting to WWE has been unfinished business. I want to main event a WrestleMania, something he's never done. Roman Reigns' story has sort of already been told to a degree, so he's kind of like kickstarting a new story, which is a bit on the nebulous side. I mean, he has said it is to get the title back, but that's not really a story. I think that there is a story for Roman Reigns. I'm going to get to that in a second. So basically, when you look at both these guys, who has to win? You sort of look at where they are in the sort of WWE sphere. Roman Reigns told his story, the Bloodline one, the one where Cody lost to him at WrestleMania 39, and then Cody beat him at WrestleMania 40, and Roman Reigns lost everything. He lost his Ula Fala to Solo Sikoa, which he got back. Now he has his sights set back on the WWE Championship. I feel like Roman's story should be, though, and I think this could play into the winner of WrestleMania, Roman needs to learn how to win on his own. Even the Solo Sikoa match, yes, he won it on his own. It was not, well, in some ways it was a typical Bloodline match because he had a ref bump. You had all sorts of overbooking madness. And Roman Reigns ended up beating Solo Sikoa. But I'm talking about like on the big stage. Roman Reigns during the Bloodline years would basically always, like he had one superpower, and that was the ability to kick out of anything, right? He could do that. But in order to win, he would always need the help of the Bloodline, especially like the last year or two of Roman Reigns' reign as champion. And so now if he doesn't have that, can he still win? Essentially, ostensibly, can he be a good guy and win? The thing about Roman is that he has not changed who he is. And I think that's an important part of the story. The guy still needs to be knocked down a couple pegs to understand he can't treat people like shit. I'm not confident they're going to tell that story, but I feel like it'd be an interesting one to tell. On the other hand, CM Punk has kind of re-kickstarted his story since he got back to WWE about a year ago. He's got a new story. And that is fulfill the potential that wasn't fulfilled before. Yeah, he was champion for 434 days, but CM Punk was never the guy. I feel like he's on a mission now to be the guy. And part of that is main eventing WrestleMania. Now, they could go kind of a weird, lazy way of he loses the Rumble, he loses Elimination Chamber, he calls in a favor to Paul Heyman, and that favor is, I want to fight Roman Reigns at WrestleMania because I know that's going to main event. Not really earned necessarily, though. I feel like he's got to get he has to have a road to get there, but also he's old. You don't want to wait too long. I feel like it should happen at this year's WrestleMania. The question is getting the main event spot enough to justify his story being finished? Or is prevailing in the main event spot the thing? And I feel like CM Punk, because he's still telling that story, should beat Roman Reigns. But you also Roman Reigns, I don't think is necessarily on his Undertaker post WrestleMania 30 run, where he's like basically going to be finishing up in a couple of years. It's entirely possible, but I think Roman is going to be, at the very least, on a WrestleMania SummerSlam schedule for the next 5 years, at least. So I think there's still plenty of time there for Roman Reigns, especially with this TKO money. WWE's going to be paying him a shit ton of money, and it doesn't seem like he's so anxious to get into the Hollywood thing. So I think Roman Reigns is going to be sticking around on a very, very part-time basis for the foreseeable future. Question is, what's the story going to be? If he faces Punk at WrestleMania and loses in the main event to CM Punk, a guy who's hungrier maybe than Roman Reigns is, Roman without his bloodline losing and understanding that, hey, I need to make amends before I have the confidence in myself to become the Roman Reigns that I know I should be, could be an interesting story. On the other hand, there were reports that Roman wasn't too enthusiastic about CM Punk rejoining WWE in the first place. So who knows if he'd be like, yeah, sure, boss, I'll go ahead and lay down on WrestleMania for CM Punk. But I feel like CM Punk has a story right now. And plus, on top of that, he is the most popular guy on the roster. And it doesn't matter that he's almost 50 years old. He's my age. He's like, God, how old am I? Oh, my God. I feel like CM Punk probably should win that match. On the other hand, you don't want to have Roman Reigns just losing to everybody now that he's not the champion anymore. You got to get him a compelling road back to the championship that you can tell a good story with. So I think in the end, CM Punk has got to win that match because he still has the story that's vital and ongoing. Whereas Roman Reigns' story is just sort of like, well, I got my Ula follow back. I want to get the championship back. But there's no real plot there. There's no real, oh, this has to happen. The guy is the Bruno of our era. The guy he has the modern day reign. He is sort of the gold standard. What happens after you're the gold standard? They need to find a story for Roman Reigns. And I think there is something too. I haven't changed. And that's a problem. So maybe that's your story. And if that's the case, I think it's justified for CM Punk to win. But it'll be interesting to see what happens if CM Punk loses to Roman Reigns and realizes, man, I've got a long way to go before I beat the top of the top. Maybe CM Punk loses to Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, somehow, some way gets the WWE Championship before Roman Reigns does. And so by the next WrestleMania, if everybody's still healthy, you have CM Punk retain successfully over Roman Reigns. Maybe he loses the first one and wins the second one. I don't know. I'm glad I'm not in that position. But the bottom line is CM Punk and Roman Reigns are both two of the most popular guys, maybe the two most popular guys. So if they decide to pull the trigger on this for this WrestleMania, that is going to be a hot ticket. I personally think that'll get the night 2 slot. But I don't know. Larson seems to think that the night 2 slot would be Cody Cena. So we've got a little bit of a Del Taco lunch wager on that one because it kind of feels like those are going to be the matches, but then The Rock could show up and throw everything out of whack. So I don't know what's going to happen there. Anyways, let's go ahead and move on to the next question. Cameron Dobby says, which finisher would you least like to take? That new one that friggin' Los Garzas debuted on SmackDown. Oh my God. It's like the Alabama Slam, but worse. And if that's not then it's the Alabama Slam. Those are terrible. Or the Last Ride. Oh my God. Wow. That'd be rough. Caden J. Cactus says, what exactly does it mean for a wrestling show storyline to have a sense of urgency? I've heard you use that phrase a few times, and as a relatively new wrestling fan, I'm curious what that would look like. All right. So this is, we talk about this a lot over at Going in Raw when we talk about the pacing of shows and how shows that we think are well-paced and satisfying shows to watch have a sense of urgency. It's a nebulous concept. It's a bit abstract, and I understand that. But basically, it means the viewer, whatever's happening on the screen, the viewer is dying to know what happens next. I'm sitting there like, oh man, action is happening that is leading to an anticipatory action that I really want to see next. It could be somebody gets attacked backstage and the person who is attacked is feverishly looking for the other person, or they're trying to prevent that person from doing some other action. A sense of urgency is, this is captivating stuff and I want to know what happens next. As opposed to just, hey, we got a match tonight. Look at this person lollygagging his way out to the ring, and look at this person meandering out to the ring, and then they have a match. When there's always stakes on the line at any given moment in every single TV angle, then you're excited to watch it, and that is a sense of urgency. What they're presenting to you matters in the moment. So there is no one thing you can point at. And that's one thing that we had observed that you can always say about the Attitude Era that not a lot of people talk about because, again, it's a bit of an abstract concept, but there is an energy about it where it was like, oh my God, stuff is always happening and we can't look away. Lance Gilmore wants to know my thoughts on Jim Cornette. I don't listen to Jim Cornette all that much. I find the guy incredibly fascinating whenever it comes to any time he's on television. Whenever Dark Side of the Ring has him on to talk about historical context or just storytelling, I understand. I've listened to plenty of his clips on like YouTube. It'd be like Jim Cornette talks about AEW's recent ratings woes. Because I'm kind of curious. I'm like, I respect the man's history in the business. And I respect a lot of what he has to say. Sometimes it's just wrapped up in some shit that is not terribly appealing to me. And honestly, I can't really even give you very many examples because so many times it just sort of comes my way. It's like, oh, Jim Cornette said this about like Kenny Omega or something. I'm like, okay, I don't know why he would say that about Kenny Omega. I really like Kenny Omega. But then, I sit down and listen to some of the meat of his shows, again, via usually YouTube clips. And I'm like, yeah, I understand why so many people listen to the guy because he knows what he's talking about in a lot of aspects, many aspects of pro wrestling. The guy was deep into the business for decades, and I'm just a fan. So, yeah, I don't really listen to him. I don't find anything like, there's no like, oh, like I wouldn't listen to Vince Russo. Like I skip past all that stuff, but Cornette's got some insight. It's just every once in a while he'll say some shit. I'm like, well, is that even necessary? So again, I don't really have any examples, but yeah, no, I understand why he is like the most listened to guy in the podcast sphere. And I respect that, but like, I don't really listen to it, man. I ain't got a whole lot of time to listen to much of anything that isn't me talking or me and Larson talking in the moment. So, yeah. Gorilla Mon says, if Aleister Black comes back to WWE, do you think he'll go back to NXT first to help breathe some life into the men's? No, he's not going to go back to NXT. No, God, no. No. Main roster, Royal Rumble. I know a lot of you said, hey, next week I think I'm going to do another one of those Royal Rumble participant videos again. Because a lot of you have noted that the current reporting on Aleister Black is that his contract won't be up in time for him to actually be in the Rumble. I hope that's not true. Probably is true. Hope it's not true. Hope he's going to be at the Rumble. But yeah, when he comes back, man, you debut him in a major way. Maybe you revisit the Cody stuff from AEW. And then you bring Arn Anderson out to block another black mask because that was hilarious. BJH42 says WWE now has AJ Styles, Finn Balor, Anderson, Gallows, and Tama Tonga. Could there ever be a Bullet Club storyline in WWE's future with those names and maybe a few more? No. Those days are gone. God, it's been, 10 years since Bullet Club formed? More? Has it been more than 10 years? It's been a long time since Bullet Club formed. And it's been a long time since any of those names were affiliated with Bullet Club. So, no. Even if they had Jay White over, even if they brought Gabe Kidd, what's that one dude name? The Drilla Maloney? Bring him. No Bullet Club. That, I appreciate what they're doing with the War Dogs there in New Japan. But like in terms of like wide relevancy, you don't do it. Man, when they try to do that stuff with AJ Styles and they just call him the OC, I hated that name. Mainly because I remember the TV show and it just doesn't sound cool. The OC, the original club, nah, it doesn't work. Leave it in the past. Monkey Man 666 says, was Vince solely responsible for Lex Luger's failure? When he was the narcissist, he didn't talk that much as far as I remember, but when Super pushed him to be the All-American, he was forced into doing crazy amounts of public appearances with no promo or talking training. All right, he goes on and on, but that you get the gist. Yeah, I don't know. Look, the crazy thing about Lex is that when you go back and you watch him in the NWA, like in WCW, before and then after WWF, that dude was crazy over. He could drop some really good promos too, and the people loved him. And then Vince brought him in and he acted like the guy couldn't talk at all. And then he shoved him in a bus and had him go like from mall to mall. That ain't how you use a wrestler. That's horrible. He never did that with anybody else. He just stuck we're supposed to be the next Hulk Hogan, stuck him on a bus by himself. Go town to town. Poor Lex. Yeah, no, that was a huge fumble. A huge fumble. Lex Luger could have been the shit, but Vince McMahon did some really weird shit with him. Didn't make a lick of sense. So, yeah, no. And then he goes to WCW. He was over there. Tony the Pokemon guy says, would Ricochet's character be more over in WWE if they went the route they're going with in AEW? Yes! I said that for ages. Ricochet should have been a bad guy. He should have been an arrogant piece of shit who knew he was really cool was really good in the ring and did really cool shit in the ring, but then he was a piece of shit outside the ring. I thought that'd be awesome. And then they're finally doing that now in AEW. So good job, AEW. X Spectre says, if this wasn't your job, what wrestling products would you watch most regularly? Would you have stopped watching a wrestling product at any point if this wasn't your job? I probably would float in and out of WWE, and I'd probably float in and out of AEW. I'd probably watch the pay-per-views, the WWE pay-per-views. I don't know if I'd plunk down for the AEW stuff. AEW is like weird enough that like if I didn't have to watch it week to week and critique it, my interest would probably be piqued from time to time, and I'd probably check it out and be like, oh, this is kind of funny. What are they doing here? And then it's like, oh, really? Mox and Edge? That's weird. I don't like that. So, I don't know, but I like this Hangman guy and I like this Swerve guy. There's enough weird shit in AEW that I'd probably be checking in on a regular basis. WWE, I'd probably still watch a decent amount of WWE, especially when both shows were at 2 hours. That's an easy... But, you know, if this wasn't my job, then I'd have some other full-time job that I'd probably work too much at, like I do this one. So, yeah. What the hell? I am recording right now. What do you want? I think I want my shoes. Yes, your shoes are right there. Why do you need your shoes?
I'm going outside and not on the trampoline.
Okay. Joseph F. says, do you remember the first live show you attended? Maybe. I know I attended the first WCW Nitro that big pop, that Scott Steiner. It was after the, oh God, what was this? Was it Super Brawl? Which one did Scott Steiner join the NWO? Because I saw the Nitro afterwards where he had bleached his hair, but he wasn't quite Big Papa Pump. I think they were calling him White Thunder or something like that. So I remember being at that one. I don't think I was at a Raw before that. I think I went to a Raw after that. And I do remember going to a local indie show where, man, was Abdullah the Butcher there? Larson would remember the card more than I would. Pretty sure Abdullah the Butcher was there. Frankie Kazarian might have been there. Yeah, that was a weird one. And I remember I used to work at Kinko's. It was back before FedEx bought it. It was a copy shop. And Honky Tonk Man came in. But it was before I was like super into wrestling. And so like I was in junior college and I just started to get into it. And I didn't like put two and two together. He's like, hey, we got a show coming up. And I was like, oh, that's cool. But I don't think I went to that show. That might have been a different thing. I don't know. I got a whole jumble of This is 30 years ago, guys. This is damn near. There was like 27 years ago. Oh my God, no, it was like close to 30 years ago. It was like 1996. Jesus. The Omega Advent says, is it necessary for John Cena to break the record on his last year of wrestling or not? Yep, the fact that he said it at Raw on Netflix means he's going to do it. Means WWE wants him to be the record-breaking guy. Means WWE is probably paying him a shit ton of money to actually clear his schedule to work mainly full-time-ish during his last year. Yes, they are investing a lot in Cena being the record-breaking guy. 1,000%. It is necessary. It is going to happen. It's going to be the big thing for 2025. Spear Pig says, who is the most underutilized wrestler over the past 5 years? Malachi Black. What a fucking fumble that was. The guy had did he have any or one singles pay-per-view matches? That's crazy. That is absolutely nuts to me. This guy could have been a main eventer. And we saw Vince fumble him massively. And we saw Tony Khan fumble him massively. And hopefully Triple H will do some cool shit with the guy once he's back in the WWE. But yeah, for me, it's him. I would say also maybe Keith Lee, but there's also some stuff we don't know about. I think personally, like, he's had some, I think with Keith Lee is probably a combination of like, he's had some very legitimate health stuff, and also probably creative. I think it's like a little bit of little A, a little bit of B. And so I kind of hold off. It's like, well, underutilized or hasn't been able to be utilized because of some very serious real health stuff that he's talked about a little bit, and has been like reported on a little bit as well. But yeah, I think Malachi, I think for the most part, the guy's been around. They just stuck him in a trios. I don't get it. Smokey1419 says, do you think WCW gets a bad rap mostly because of revisionist history? It wasn't all great, but for a time it was the best wrestling out there, but never gets mentioned with the Attitude Era. Yes, abs 1,000%. WCW is a victim of the, what is it? The history is written by the victors. Yeah, absolutely. That being said, I think a lot of people still have, like this guy, still has very, very fond memories of WCW. You go back and watch WCW Nitro, any random Nitro in like 1996, 1997, it destroys what they were doing in WWF. It kills what they were doing in WWF. It felt like a big, big deal. It felt like a big, big show. They had cool shit going on and killer wrestling. Yeah. No, WCW was the shit back in the day. It's crazy that it fell apart as quickly as it did. And it's also crazy that WWF was able to turn around in the fashion they did in such a quick manner. If you look at WWF in 1996 and WWF in 1998, it's like two different companies. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Ask WrestleJuice. Thank you, everybody, for your questions. I appreciate it. If you want in on the Ask WrestleJuice action, do me a solid. Hit that subscribe button and the notify bell so you're notified whenever I put up a new question thread right here at WrestleJuice. Also, if it's not too much of a favor to ask, hit that thumbs up. Till next time, we'll see you guys around. This is a impromptu taste test. Trying some lemon cake today.
It's lemon bread.
Lemon bread? This is a cake. It was more like cake.
It was a loaf of bread.
You're a loaf.